Wonderful. Welcome. Welcome, and sorry for the technical difficulties. For those who don't know me, my name is Sarah White. I am the nutritional therapist at Ocean Rock Wellness, working from home. Today, we thought a great topic would be common nutrition myths debunked. A really appropriate time for this, considering that we're all working from home, we're probably on social media more, and we're all looking for kind of strategies to optimize our well-being. And I think there's a lot on the web, whether it's social media or not, on how to maybe balance your immune system. Everyone's kind of got something to say. And so how do we debunk kind of what's real and what's applicable for us and what's not? So I've got a few pointers to start out. To begin, and for lack of proper words, what we kind of really need to do is, there's tons of information out there. Begin with going with a blank slate. And whether that means unfollowing kind of accounts that are putting lots of health information and kind of fear-mongering out there, I say cut the crap. Similar to our plates, kind of take out what doesn't belong. And when you start to take in health information, and if you see something that potentially you would want to listen to or incorporate into your world, into your diet, is who's saying it? Are they qualified? Is it evidence-based? And is it their kind of their own personal journey, and that they've decided that this is something that's really important from a nutrition perspective? Or is it kind of evidence-based, and do they have kind of clinical training along with it? So at Ocean Rock Wellness, we are a functional medicine practice, and we use a lot of evidence-based and kind of anecdotal evidence to inform our clients. The other thing is what to believe. Someone might say go gluten-free, or go dairy-free, or don't eat potatoes for this reason, and why. You know, look at the science behind it. And also, there are 7 billion people on the planet, which means everyone's going to be different. They're going to have different stressors, diets, genetic health history, or genetic predispositions. And so what's right for someone is not necessarily right for you. So I always like clients, when they come into the office, a lot of them have questions and fears around food, or I heard this, kind of begin to kind of clear it out of your world, and start with a blank slate and use only what's kind of working for you. Another point is being flexible. Some things will work and some things won't. And being able to be flexible. I have sometimes clients come into my office and we go through some recommendations, and they may say, this is what I want to keep. You know, this kind of nutrition strategy is something I want to keep. And that would be quite fine, but I do think it's smart to start to question things. If you've been doing it, can you measure the success? Can you see that it's worked for you? Similar along the lines of the definition of insanity, you know, doing the same thing over and over again and hoping for different results. If one thing you've kind of kept with you, maybe it's carb restriction. If you've kind of dieted and done carb restriction for your whole life, has it gotten you anywhere? And what's the science behind it? Are you able to kind of try out incorporating good carbs into your diet? So those are kind of what to believe, what not, some considerations. Now we'll get into myths. I think we're going to discuss and debunk about 10 myths today. So first up is a great one. All calories are created equal. And this is absolutely false. 100, and let me start by saying, often at Ocean Rock Wellness, most of the time we don't count calories. And that's simply because they're not created equal. Instead, we look at the function of food and what it's doing to our bodies. And, you know, not necessarily what it's doing to our bodies, but what it can do for our body as well. 100 calories worth of, what was my example? 100 calories of Fruit Loops is very different than 100 calories of avocado. And they're going to have a completely different effect on our body. So 100 calories of Fruit Loops, you are getting maybe 20 to 20 to 30 grams of sugar. That's going to spike your sugar, put a strain on the pancreas to release more insulin. 100 calories of avocado is not going to spike your blood glucose levels, and it's going to provide lasting energy and support many systems in our body. So calories are not created equal. One area I do find on kind of social media is lots of information about kind of post-exercise using things like peanut butter powder and Greek yogurt and for their protein content. But we also want to look at, when it comes to calories and macronutrients, is the quality of it. So that's a consideration as well, is what's the quality of what you're eating. It doesn't really matter about calories necessarily, it's the quality. Next myth. Okay, so we did calories and food. Carbs. Myth number 2 is carbs make you fat. And this can be true and it can be not true. So let's kind of debunk this a bit. Carbs are not the enemy. Simply put, there are carbs that can be really beneficial to our well-being and to our health and build us up. And there can be carbs that contribute to chronic lifestyle diseases. Let's break them down into simple processed carbs and then complex whole food carbs. So carbs that could potentially contribute to weight issues would be carbs that have been processed and don't have their fiber. So that would be white flour. It could be sugar. So whether it's excess natural sugars or refined sugars. And it could be simple carbs or kind of starchy carbs in excess. So lots of white potato or any carbs in excess could contribute to blood sugar imbalance and contribute to kind of then weight issues or an increase in weight and body fat particularly. So considerations would be the quality of the carb and the quantity. What can carbs, and you know, it's often, my role as a nutritional therapist is I get a lot of fear around food. And so not what carbs can do to us, but what they can do for us. So let's look at some positives that carbohydrates can have. They are full of vitamins and minerals. So great sources of carbs would be starchy vegetables. That would be carrots. I know carrots are a carbohydrate, sad. So carrots, butternut squash, pumpkin, beetroot, potatoes, whether it's a white potato or a sweet potato, beans and legumes, so black beans, lentils, red lentils, green lentils. It could be quinoa. Fruit is another great carb, rich in antioxidants. So fruits could be berries, mango, pear, peaches, apricots, strawberries, banana. So we've got fruits and vegetables have carbs, and then we've got grains. Good for you grains would be things like quinoa, maybe buckwheat, if that's a great source for you. And you can get them again then from beans and legumes. Now, legume is something like a lentil, so lentils, black beans. The carbs that could in excess contribute to blood glucose imbalance would be things like refined carbohydrates. So that's often what you would find in flour that has been milled down from the whole grain. So lots of baking and pastries would be rich in carbs naturally, especially when you pair it with sugar and refined sugar. Other sources of carbs are natural sugars or natural sweeteners. So honey, maple syrup, agave, those also have carbohydrates in them, or they're a source of carbs, and therefore in excess could contribute. So we're looking at quality and quantity when it comes to carbs. What can they do for you? Provide vitamins and minerals, antioxidants. You can get really, really, really full, colorful carbohydrates, like pumpkin would be rich in vitamin A. You'd get lots of antioxidants from green things like kiwis. Dark pigmented berries. Oh, I've had someone raise a hand. I'll take questions towards the end. dark leafy berries, and then anything with a rich pigment, so colorful fruits and vegetables are a really great source of carb. And if you have it in a modest portion, I usually say, and it's going to differ from person to person and what your imbalance is or what your goal is. So a general kind of rule or general recommendation for carbohydrate, if you're not working with an imbalance, would be about a small handful with each meal. That could be 1 orange, it could be a half cup of berries, it could be a half cup of sweet potato with your lunch. At dinner, it could be a bit of quinoa or a small cup of carrot soup. It could be a nice shredded carrot salad with kind of a nice vinaigrette, maybe some pistachios and cilantro. So I think carbs are delicious. I think everyone can agree to that. It's about the quality and the quantity. So vitamins and minerals. Carbs are also one of the only, or probably the only source of fiber. So we get fiber from carbohydrates. Fiber is really important. It can feed the beneficial bacteria in our guts and kind of give them the energy and the fuel they need. So that's really important for our gut health. Fiber keeps us regular, which is really important for optimal well-being. So having a daily bowel movement, a little gruesome, but really important, which can help with detoxification. It's kind of the third stage of liver detoxification, is kind of elimination and ensuring that all the byproducts and bacteria is getting swiftly taken out. Oops, sorry, I'm getting lots of alerts. Energy for our cells. Cell membrane fluidity, so to allow nutrients in and out of the cells, it's important to have really good sources of carbohydrates. And sports performance, so sports can use carbohydrates as well. How to distinguish between good and bad is really about if it's a whole food. If it's been kind of processed in any way, begin to question whether it's been broken down so it's therefore a simple carbohydrate because it doesn't have fiber, or if it's still complex. If it's got fiber, it's more than likely, or a good dose of fiber, it's more than likely a complex carb. So that's what we've got. And the other thing is portion. So again, it's going to differ from person to person because we all have different needs. We've all got different kind of blood sugar, the way we regulate our blood sugar, genetic, oh gosh. What is this telling me? Okay, next myth. So carbs, we know all the sources of carbs then. Not all carbs are created equal, correct? The good versus the bad. And I wouldn't say good versus bad. I would say what builds us up and what's going to contribute to breaking kind of our health down. Build us up or break us down. That's how you can kind of distinguish quality and portion. Myth number 3, healthy food is more expensive. I love Dr. Famous, the way she says it could be a little more expensive in the short run, but in the long term, healthy eating is really important for long-term health. And I think we'll all be grateful later down the line once we are looking at more chronic lifestyle diseases, which usually happen a bit later in our mid to end of life, that healthy food is worth it. Now, debunking some things. So many of us are willing to maybe go for a pedicure, or we are willing to go out for dinner and maybe spend $100 or $150 in Bermuda at least for maybe 2 people at dinner with some wine. Maybe we're willing to go out with friends, do some shopping, buy some makeup. There are tons of expenses we can easily spend, but when it comes to healthy eating, $100 seems kind of preposterous. So that's something to question, really. What are we willing to spend our disposable income on? Breaking it down, there's a really healthy way to eat, and that is just picking whole food ingredients. I think when we look at what's most expensive in our grocery, baskets or carts, meats, dairies, and packaged ingredients, crackers, breads, pizzas, ice cream, those things are actually really expensive. Cut all that out, and if you're just looking at kind of veg, and frozen fruit can be much cheaper than fresh fruit, frozen fruit, veg, and when it comes to protein, organic protein and grass-fed protein sources can be more expensive. What you can do is incorporate more plant protein from nuts and seeds. Beans, canned organic beans are really affordable. Quinoa and kind of lentils, that's how you can break up the cost of your protein a bit. But looking at what's in your cart and what's most expensive, look at a grocery bill you get and what was the most expensive items, and then go from there. So I think healthy food and, you know, healthy eating, a lot of people say it's one of the biggest barriers to kind of wanting to come to a nutritional consultation, is knowing then that it's going to cost them. Working with a nutritional therapist, we can easily give you kind of sound recommendations on how to create an affordable eating plan for you. So top tips for eating healthy on a budget, I would say reducing your processed foods, so not buying breads, not buying packaged ingredients that you kind of would use as maybe cookies, crackers, breads, ice creams. So cutting that stuff out is an easy way. Next would be buying frozen. Frozen is often, frozen foods are often frozen the day of being picked. And so that means they can retain the nutrients really well. So I use frozen spinach, I use frozen peas. Those are great in pastas, pestos, dips, as a snack. And then when it comes to fruit, frozen fruit, I would say 90% of the fruit I do buy is frozen. What's fresh is often citrus and maybe some local strawberries, which are delicious. Next up would be reducing some of your animal meats and swapping in, adding in some plant protein options. So lentils, beans, nuts, and seeds. That would be another option. So those are 3 really great tips. And then fourth, I would say, is sign up with a farm. A lot of farms in Bermuda right now are doing pre-orders. Sign up for a farm and get a bag's worth of vegetables. A head of broccoli is probably $2 or $3, and that could last you quite a bit. A lime's 90 cents. So buying local veg is also another way to save money. Myth number 4. So myth number 4, gluten-free is the way to go. A lot of considerations, and actually at Ocean Rock, we really truly believe for most people that gluten-free is a great way to support optimal well-being. And that's for a few reasons. Let's look at the first reason. Gluten-free reduces our carbohydrate consumption quite a bit. But what happens is, if you go gluten-free and then you start buying lots of packaged ingredients that say gluten-free, so gluten-free cookies and gluten-free crackers and gluten-free breads, that doesn't mean that it's necessarily healthy. So gluten-free doesn't mean that you are healthier because you're removing gluten, because you could be adding more preservatives, you could be adding more sugar. When they take out the gluten, they're going to fill it with something else. So if you are going gluten-free and you're reducing your processed consumption of breads, pastries, cookies, then that could be really beneficial. Now, the medical reasons to go gluten-free could be you are celiac, but there's also what we call a spectrum of non-celiac gluten sensitivity, and it's for people who have not tested positive for celiac, but either have a sensitivity to gluten, or they have a gluten intolerance, or they just don't digest it well. And you know, a lot of anecdotal evidence has shown us that reducing gluten in your diet, people begin to feel a lot better from that. And whether that's because it was contributing to their symptoms, whether that's kind of a metabolic, or if a lot of gluten can be contributing to gut imbalances. And so many of our clients come in with gut symptoms, whether it's bloating, bacterial overgrowth, acid reflux. There's tons of associations with gluten and the impact it can have on our digestive system, whether it's the microbiome, so the bacteria, or whether it's actually on the gut lining and it's quite irritating and can exacerbate symptoms such as leaky gut, which can contribute to food sensitivities. So going gluten-free can be really beneficial to your health if you are just resorting or kind of using other good carbs in your diet, like fruits and vegetables, gluten-free grains, and starchy veg. If you're going gluten-free and then buying tons of gluten-free packaged ingredients, it's not necessarily the way to go. If you do have gluten in your diet, we always opt for organic to reduce pesticide exposure. And it's great to do fermented gluten as well, which helps break down the gluten proteins. So you're getting a lower gluten level. Our wheat, has been processed and genetically altered to have higher gluten concentrations in it. So it's much different than what our ancestors had for bread. And for them, they would have had low gluten, and they would have probably created their own sourdough starter and eaten lots of fermented gluten grains. For us, we are eating lots of hybridized, high protein, high gluten concentrated grains. So there are a bunch of considerations. Gluten-free is not the way to go if you're swapping it out for lots of kind of sugary, gluten-free alternatives. But going gluten-free can actually really improve your well-being if it's done properly. Come see one of us if you would like to do that swap. Next up, myth number 5, low-fat foods are better for you. This is incorrect. So let's, for an example, take yogurt. A low-fat yogurt, a blueberry low-fat yogurt, could contain up to 17 to 20 grams of sugar in a serving. Often, dairy products, for example, that are low-fat are being filled with something else to make them taste good. Ultimately, fat tastes great, whether it is butter, avocado, nuts and seeds. Fat is really palatable, it's delicious, and when you take fat out of an item and make it low fat, you probably have to boost the flavor some other way, and most manufacturers will do that with sugar. And not necessarily a natural sugar like blueberries or honey, they'll do that with refined sugars. So low fat are not better for you. The other consideration is fat is actually really beneficial for us. Some reasons for, what did I want to talk about? I had a few cases. Fats are important for brain development. So I work a lot with preconception and fertility clients, and fat is really important for brain development. In growing babies. It's also really important for us from a prevention of neurological decline. So we use and we recommend lots of healthy fats for clients, especially aging clients, because it can be used in the prevention of conditions such as Alzheimer's. It's part of a focused nutrition plan. Fats can help stabilize blood sugar. They take longer to digest than carbohydrates, which means the energy is being released into our blood sugar, into our blood stream at a much slower rate. And so they don't spike our blood glucose and they can sustain that. In addition, if you were to pair a complex carbohydrate with some healthy fats, you are going to lower you're also going to lower the release of the sugars from the complex. So an example would be if you had berries. Berries have fiber, so they would spike your blood sugar only a little bit of a roller coaster. If you paired them with some nuts or seeds, they are going to together take a little longer to digest, and therefore your blood sugar isn't going to spike even as much as it did with just berries. So fats are really important for that. They are great for cell membrane fluidity. So what that is helping nutrients in and out of the cell. Fats are really important for that, and we want that to be able to get nutrients in and out of our cells. Similarly, and again, back to my focus with fertility, is that fats are really important for fertility. So similar to a cell membrane, there is a membrane to the egg, and it needs to be fluid for a sperm to be able to penetrate that membrane. So another important role there. And when it comes to our joints, they kind of lubricate our joints. So really great if you've got joint conditions or painful joints, using lots of anti-inflammatory fats. So fats are amazing for us, and fats and snacks are the two areas where I say can really build you up or break you down. So quality fats matter. Next up, yogurt is good for bacteria in your belly, only if it's got live strains. However, not all yogurt does have live strains. Let's consider this. Two, yogurt, many people do have food sensitivities to dairy. So it could actually be contributing, as well as yogurt can be very rich in added sugars. Not many yogurts are plain, and if they are, it doesn't always taste great. I was on a family trip when I was younger in Italy with my family, and I went up to the breakfast bar at a hotel, and I got some yogurt in a bowl and put some granola on. I was probably 13 or 14 years old. And I went and sat down and I took a bite, and I was repulsed. I had thought the yogurt had gone bad. Little did I know it was just actually plain unsweetened yogurt. So tons of sugar is added to yogurt. So if you're getting yogurt with added sugar to it, you're actually feeding the not beneficial bacteria in our gut and causing more disruption in our gut microbiome. So a lot of clients come in and say, oh, I have yogurt in my diet, and I do it because it's got beneficial bacteria. So are you eating a live strain yogurt bacteria? How do you tolerate dairy to begin with? And is there added sugar? Those are great considerations. And again, it's different on a case-by-case basis. So that's myth 6. Looking at our time. Egg yolks raise your cholesterol. That's myth 7. I have many clients who, and the media did tell us, reduce your egg yolk exposure and don't eat egg yolks, only eat whites because it will increase your cholesterol. A bunch of myths here. And unfortunately, what happened is the era of low fat, no egg yolks, we are all eating, or we have been eating, egg white omelets with no flavor, and many of the nutrients are actually in the yolks. Eggs are great for some people who don't react to them, so who don't have a food sensitivity. Eggs can be really beneficial in specific nutrients, whether it's choline, whether it's omega-3s, and it's a great protein source. So it's different from person to person, first of all. But did you know 85% of our cholesterol is produced within our body? So our body can turn on and off the regulation of producing cholesterol based on how much dietary cholesterol we're getting from sources like eggs. And what's the next consideration I want to talk about this? Because I'm so, this one's a big one that comes up. Cholesterol is actually, there are different types of kind of biomarkers we look at when someone looks at cholesterol. And there is HDL and there's LDL. So if someone's got high cholesterol, we look at total cholesterol, we look at triglycerides, we look at your HDL, and we look at your LDL. It's not egg yolks that raise cholesterol. What raises cholesterol is oxidation, raises kind of the LDL, which is the not great cholesterol, is lack of exercise, it's excess sugar, it's oxidative stress, so that's lots of rancid and heated fats, it's excess carbohydrates and sugars, and it's low in certain B vitamins and minerals. So it's not eggs. We have to take a much bigger look at our diet and not have one culprit as raising our cholesterol, because eggs can be really beneficial for some of us. So breaking it down for everyone, it's HDL and LDL. Those are two biomarkers we look at when it comes to cholesterol, as well as homocysteine. So if you've got high cholesterol, or you are worried about your cholesterol levels, come to a nutritional therapy appointment with me, or go see one of the functional medicine doctors at Ocean Rock, and really get educated on what it means. And we're able to test HDL and LDL to see. HDL is known as the good cholesterol, and that is its transport, or high density lipoproteins are transporting cholesterol from the arteries to our livers to be processed and excreted, whereas LDL is being transported and accumulated in for plaque. So HDL, LDL, homocysteine, tons of biomarkers. We'd also want to look at your vitamin D levels, nutrient levels, so many considerations, and we shouldn't have one food that we say is the culprit for elevated cholesterol levels. Completely not true. And really, when we're looking at our cardiovascular risk, just to go back to that point, we should be looking at, again, nutrient levels. We should be looking at our exercise, family kind of genetic risks, sugar intake, alcohol intake, carbohydrate intake, stress levels, B vitamins, whether we're having enough fiber in our diet. And cholesterol is actually, it's not horrible. Cholesterol helps produce steroid hormones. It helps synthesize vitamin D. There are benefits to it. You just want the right HDL versus LDL ratio. Okay, organic produce is more nutritious. This is how I kind of debunk this myth to clients. Organic is great because what you don't have is, and produce, we're talking about fruits and vegetables. Organic is great because you don't have exposure to pesticides. However, the argument is that buying organic from China could mean that it takes about 4 to 5 weeks for that produce to reach us. It's similar to organic apples. Yes, it doesn't have the pesticides, but let's look at where it's coming from. Transportation and the time from picking an item to when you eat it, it will begin to lose nutrients. So when it comes to organic, I would say prioritize what is on the Dirty Dozen list, and that is put out by the Environmental Working Group. You can look up Environmental Working Group Dirty Dozen list and prioritize that, because what those items are, there's 12 items, they have really high pesticide exposure. And so I would definitely prioritize organic, buying those organic. However, buying local fruits and vegetables are kind of questionably more nutritious because, you know, if kale is picked at Watson's Farm or Windy Bank or J&J Produce or Amwell's Farm 3 days ago, it's going to have a much higher nutrient level than something that's been picked potentially 2 weeks ago and is transported here. Those are considerations. So I follow the Dirty Dozen list, and that is often things with very little to no exterior, so things like strawberries, peaches, but things like citrus and avocados, which have a thick outer lining, I would say you don't need to necessarily prioritize those as being organic because you peel them and as such. So it's a bit of a toss-up, but it's not always more nutritious, especially if it's coming from somewhere really far away. It's going to lose nutrients on the way. Personally, my recommendation is to buy organic if it is on the Dirty Dozen list, and then the rest I buy and grow personally as much as possible myself and use local farmers. It's best to eat many small meals throughout the day. This is a myth because it's different from person to person. Some people will have a smaller breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then a morning and an afternoon snack. That might be great for someone who is looking to stabilize their blood glucose levels. And it could be someone who doesn't enjoy larger meals. It could be someone who gets acid reflux and can't tolerate larger meals. It could be a personal preference. But actually, a solid breakfast, lunch, and dinner can be really beneficial. What you're doing sometimes is you're giving yourself 5 to 6 hours for your digestive system. You're giving it a break during that time, so that could be a benefit. If you're eating enough kind of fiber, fat, and protein in your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you might not need it. So it's different from person to person, whether you have small meals throughout the day or if you have 3 large meals. But don't believe that 5 small meals is what's best for everybody. For example, someone with a specific digestive imbalance, I may actually have them on 3 good meals a day to allow their digestive system the time to begin to repair. Someone with an autoimmune condition, that might be a great idea as well, is to just do 3 main meals that are sufficient versus 5 small meals. Completely different from person to person. People who work out need extra protein. It completely depends. Many of us, and if you're listening, you're probably somewhat health conscious and aware. So, but the standard American diet, there's an excess of protein in our diet, and so most people are eating protein portions way out of their need. And that's kind of when you go to a restaurant and there is a 12-ounce steak. I'm not sure anybody needs a 12-ounce steak. So there is a large population are actually over-consuming protein who don't need that. And a higher protein intake would be associated with sports athletes, so kind of professional athletes who really do need to grow muscle. It could be for people who need specific amino acids. It could be people who have had an accident and need their body needs excess protein to repair. But when it comes to working out, it's more about just timing and quality of protein. You don't necessarily need more. An example is I have had someone come to me for nutritional therapy, and she was eating quite a bit of protein because she was following a paleo diet, which if you're mainstream kind of recommendations are lots of animal protein following a paleo diet. And she naturally was quite lean, but following a really high protein diet because she thought that's what would benefit her for lean muscle mass, she was actually bulking up. And so just a normal modest protein intake was sufficient for her, and more antioxidants, more plant protein helped us reduce that extra bulk. So you don't necessarily need more protein, you just need to time it, ensure good quality, and that you are having good quality protein sources, kind of 3 meals a day, and that can be coming from different protein sources. It doesn't also need to be animal protein or a whey protein shake. So quality, diversity, and are really important. Timing, lots of considerations. But I wouldn't say that a 20-minute workout would need excess protein. Your body can only tolerate a certain amount of protein each time you have a meal. So having 50 grams of protein may not actually be the best option. How much protein do I need? That is going to differ person to person. I would say come to me for a nutritional therapy consultation so we can figure out how much you need. Okay, so we debunked 10 myths today. I hope you have gotten something from today. Maybe it's inspired you to diversify your protein into plant protein. Maybe it's to support local farmers. Maybe it's not to fear eggs. Maybe it is, what else did we discuss? Maybe it's to unfollow a bunch of social media accounts that are giving you advice that's kind of fearing or fear-mongering to you, and maybe it's inspiring you to come for a personalized nutrition consultation. I am not going to answer questions on today. However, if you do have questions, I would welcome you to email me, swhite@oceanrockwellness.com. So that is SWIGHT@oceanrockwellness.com. And if there's short answers related to this video, I can definitely get back to you. If they're more personalized, I would recommend you come see me for a consultation. Final tips. What are my final tips? I did write a few down. I would say a really great diet. Final tips would be don't follow what worked for someone else. Create your own plan that it's focused, that it's unique and personalized based on your needs. So stop following people that are putting advice out there that doesn't pertain to you, because we're absorbing it. We're absorbing everything. Use the Dirty Dozen list. Quality over quantity. every time, and aim for lots of colors. For the most part, a diet rich, similar to a Mediterranean diet, rich in colorful fruits and vegetables, lean protein from poultry, organic poultry, eggs, nuts and seeds, legumes, beans, fish are great, and carb sources from fruits and vegetables, and some beans and legumes is really important. Those are my general recommendations. I always say, you know, have a why when it comes to your nutrition strategy. My why is that it feels really good to feel really good. I have been in a place, kind of college years and before that, where I had low energy to the point of needing to take a nap every day. I had a really hard time studying and focusing in anything I did. I was having body fat but not being able to look at lean, maintain lean muscle mass, and I have, for the most part, low energy. I've been in the place where low energy and bad kind of brain function has I would say impaired my quality of life. And now that I know how great it is to feel good, I sort of don't want to revert back. So feeling good, I think, is one of the most valuable things we can do, especially now, feeling good and building our resilience. So have a why and use that. And it's absolutely possible. One of the biggest things we can do is self-sabotage. We can say, it doesn't matter, I'm not actually going to reach my goal of how I want to feel. Absolutely not true. Focused nutrition and functional medicine can be invaluable for helping you get there, and having a team to get you there as well. That is all for today. I hope you have enjoyed or taken something from today's webinar. Again, if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I would love to see you for a virtual consultation. And I am going to now somehow figure out how to stop video.